Network. This is Sportsline.
Hey there, Titans Talk on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Monday night on News Channel 5+. Disappointing Monday for Titans fans because of a 35-10 beatdown yesterday at the hand of the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field up there in Philly. And it was the A.J. Brown game. We knew that going in. We talked about it last week. We talked about it going into the game yesterday. We talked about it after the game yesterday. And it's the case here tonight. This was all about facing A.J. Brown. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are a team that was 10-1 coming in and still has the best record in the National Football League. It was about, can the Titans match up against one of those great teams? But it was also really a referendum on the trade that was made last year by John Robinson. And that is just the bottom line. And I know some people have said, and I've got messages on Twitter and things like that that say, hey, I don't want to talk about A.J. anymore. It's time to move on. That may be true, but yesterday highlighted, I think, what in some ways hasn't been talked enough about this season. The Titans, yes, they've dealt with injuries. Yes, they've retooled their offensive line. All those things are true. And they're impacts of why the Titans this season are 7-5 and not really battling for a top spot in the AFC. They've got the division seemingly under wraps, but they don't appear to be on the same plane as the contenders like the Bills or the Chiefs, those sort of teams. And yesterday, the Eagles in Philadelphia. But what was highlighted completely yesterday is what I think, if you really dug into it or thought about it much, you've seen all season long. And that is the absence of A.J. Brown completely changes what this team can do offensively. And when you're trying to mask an offensive line that isn't very good, or you've got some injuries on the defense that prevents your pass rush from being what it was expected to be, A.J. Brown masks all that. When you have wide receivers that aren't getting much separation from the defensive backs, well, what's part of the solution is having a stud like A.J. Brown who takes a ton of attention. And then all of a sudden, those guys get a little bit softer coverage, and maybe they get a little bit more separation to make plays. It all goes hand in hand. But what happens is when you have a star like A.J. Brown, a transcendent talent like that, he makes everybody else on the field around him better. And that's just something that the Titans don't get right now. Because one position on the field, that it's an important position, but one place where you really can't make anybody else better is running back. And the best player on the Titans offense is Derrick Henry. The problem is he can't really do anything for anybody else. Yes, he's going to break a tackle and maybe turn something into a 15-yard gain that was supposed to be a 3-yard gain. But in essence, he's just doing that for himself. Helps the whole team, but it's making a play by yourself. A.J. Brown's mere presence on the field changes everybody else's assignment and what they're doing. When A.J. Brown is out there, your safeties have to play back. They have to understand the threat that he can take you deep, that he's going to have the deep drag. They cannot be pushing up on the line of scrimmage with a singular focus to stop Derrick Henry in the running game. If your offensive line is bad and it struggles to hold up in protection, they gave up 6 sacks yesterday. Ryan Tannehill hit the turf that many times. If that's your predicament, A.J. Brown helps you get rid of the ball more quickly because he gets free more quickly, because you can throw the ball up to him and expect that more times than not he's going to come down with it, as we saw yesterday. He has a profound impact on the game. And yesterday you saw the impact he has for the Eagles, who went from a ho-hum NFC team to the best record in the NFL with the acquisition of A.J. in the offseason. And you see what it's done for the Titans. The Titans last year were the number 1 seed in the AFC. With A.J. Brown on the team, despite the fact that they used 91 different players because of all the injuries. Derrick Henry missed the final 9 games of the regular season. And again, he's mightily important to this team. But if you look at the numbers or the record last year, the Titans had a better record when Derrick Henry was out of the lineup than they did when A.J. Brown was out of the lineup. And I think a lot of people understood that, which was why it was so shocking when John Robinson elected to make that trade to send A.J. to Philadelphia with just draft picks in return, essentially. Because the people who really paid attention understood the value that A.J. Brown had and knew that it was far more than just the numbers, the catches, the yards, the touchdowns. He had an impact on everything that they did. And now you see his absence in everything that they do. And you see the impact yesterday and all season long on what the Eagles are now doing. It was stunning. And I think, unfortunately, yesterday is just a crystallization of the fact that for whatever reason that trade was made, it is going to go down as one of the worst personnel decisions, maybe the worst, in the history of the Titans franchise. And we got more games to play this year, and obviously the Titans will have a long history moving forward, and hopefully A.J. has a long career. But it's hard to see right now any other circumstance other than A.J. won this trade. He got his money, he went to a place, and he's helped them become a contender. Meanwhile, the Titans aren't as good without him. And I heard a couple people yesterday, as this was getting talked about through the game, who were saying that A.J. demanded a trade. He didn't want to be here. A.J. also said he wanted to retire as a Titan. Look, he's difficult to deal with. I've talked about that on this program at times, that he needs to get off social media. For somebody who said that he had depression issues at times, struggled with that through an entire season when he was seemingly playing great, living on social media when you're a star athlete seems like a bad place for your headspace. Fighting with your organization like he did last year in the offseason seemed like a bad move. But here's the deal. The Titans held a lot of the cards there. They could have done nothing last offseason, and A.J. Brown would be lining up wearing number 11 in two-tone blue because they had him under contract for this season. So at a minimum, they could have gone out and done that, and I think you're looking at a Titans team that's much, much better. How many games do they win? Do they beat the Giants, which went down to the final play despite the fact the Titans could score in the second half? Do they beat Kansas City, which went to overtime? Maybe. Do they beat the Bengals last week, which went right down to the bitter end? I think you can make that argument. What about yesterday? How different do the Eagles look and the Titans look if A.J. Brown switched jerseys back and came back to Tennessee? Quite different is the answer. And it's hard not to think about what if. What if A.J. Brown was still there? And look, I don't think we will ever know exactly what happened between A.J. and John Robinson, but this is the bottom line to me. John Robinson didn't have to trade A.J. last year. He didn't. He could have him right now. I also think he could have found the money to pay him. And I think the impact is laid out over the first 7 or 8 minutes of the show is profound. And it doesn't take all that much to figure it out. So if you're going to pay a guy, A.J. Brown seems like a pretty good guy to have thought about paying. But the Titans didn't want to do it, and John Robinson didn't want to do it, and now they are paying the price on the field without him. Because again, when you have other deficiencies, a guy like A.J. helps mask it all. Instead, the Titans got a guy who was motivated yesterday. He said he'd circled that game on the schedule from the moment it came out. He said his first touchdown celebration was a, come here, get your whooping. I love you, but come here and get your whooping. That was his first touchdown celebration. Meant, obviously, to be directed at the Titans. He said after the game that he hopes they regret making that trade. And he had a monster day. 9 for 1, or 8 for 1, 19, and 2 touchdowns. So now the question is, where do the Titans go from here? They obviously have to find other ways to mask these deficiencies and try to get back on track down the stretch. They're going to win the AFC South, barring an absolute collapse. And even then, that may not be enough because I don't trust either the Jaguars or the Colts to win that many games down the stretch. So the Titans are going to win the AFC South. They are. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to have a home playoff game. How do they find a way to be ready to try to win and win in the playoffs? Because right now, they don't look like a team that can do it. But ultimately, that trade and what it means is going to be felt for a long time. And I think you can make the argument, I did in my post-game column, we talked about it last night, we'll hear some of that coming up on the program. I think you can make the argument that that trade closed the window on the Titans' championship hopes with this nucleus. Because they don't have enough pieces to make up for that loss. And it's unfair to put that on Treylon Burks. He's been given some unfortunate circumstances this year with the asthma and the hamstring and the ankle and now a concussion yesterday after an absolutely incredible catch in the end zone for his first career touchdown catch. But here's the thing, even Treylon Burks at the best of what we've seen Treylon Burks be this year, and hopefully there's more of that to come and even more growth, isn't A.J. Brown. He just isn't. Very few people are. That's not a crime. And it's unfair that he's going to have to always live up to it. But he is because of the decision that John Robinson made. And right now, the Titans don't have enough pieces to make up for A.J. Brown. Treylon Burks are not. And for that reason, I don't put them amongst the contenders in the AFC. The Bills can win. The Chiefs can win. The Bengals can win. I think if the Ravens get Lamar Jackson healthy, we'll see on that knee, I think they can win. I'm not sure if the Dolphins are ready yet, but they got the weapons to win, the offense to win. The Titans don't. Unless something drastically changes. But one of the drastic changes happened in the offseason, and the Titans lost that. They lost that trade and maybe lost their championship window in the process because to try to turn this around, even in the offseason, how many pieces will it take right now to fix what you're looking at on the offensive line? Because I don't think it's one or two. I don't think it's one draft pick and all of a sudden it's done. And oh, by the way, how's their success on drafting offensive linemen the last few years? So you're not even guaranteed one draft pick would be a guy that you hit a home run on and do well with. How many wide receivers do you have to make up for the production and the spacing and the threat that A.J. Brown is? It's more than just Treylon Burks. That's the problem the Titans have right now, is because I think it's a process to work their way back up. They were on the upswing. They were building and building and building and building. And A.J. Brown, that draft pick, a second-round pick in 2019, was a huge part of it. He was a part of the three best teams that ever played here in consecutive seasons in Tennessee. That was the three best years they've had in consecutive years. Going to the championship game in 2019, winning the division in 2020, getting the number one seed in the AFC last year. Three best years, back to back to back, in AJ's first 3 years. And then they trade him away, and it's not the same thing this year. That singular move halted their progress forward to being a championship-type team. Now, they didn't win the championship with him. That's fair. But a year ago, they were the number one seed. They were one of the teams who could have gotten to the Super Bowl and could have won it all. And he was a huge reason why, given everything that happened last year. Your thoughts on what you saw yesterday? If it helps you put a final grade, like me, on what that trade of A.J. Brown meant. Are you as down on their chances, the Titans' chances that is, in terms of being a championship contender based off of what you saw yesterday, based off of what you know they don't have anymore in A.J. Brown? And what has to get turned around in your mind? Phone lines are open, 737-7767. We'll take our first break. We'll come back and get to your calls, plus much more, here on Titans Talk on News Channel 5+.